Okay, welcome here if you're live, or if you are watching this at a later time. I just would love to invite you to be a little more still right now. The invitation is to allow yourself to just be here. There's nowhere else to be right now. There's nothing you need to know or figure out. You can just be here. So it's just an invitation to actually, I believe, through lived experience, the easiest way to be here right now, present, is to breathe, is to breathe deeply and to be with your breath. Noticing as you inhale what's happening in your body, and as you release on the exhale, a little more time, spending a little more time in that exhale can feel like a gift that you're giving yourself as you are inviting yourself and all of your systems to be present here in this space. So take a breath, notice your inhale, release your exhale, take some time with it, release what no longer serves you. Release your thoughts about what you're going to do after this, or what you're going to eat, or where you could be instead of here. Just be here. Allow yourself to be. Get yourself alive. So, can you do this with yourself or yourself? You just be wherever you are. It's safe to keep your eyes closed. Go ahead and do that. That feels good. I want to speak to this thing that I started to speak before I pushed record, and that is this this beauty that kind of uploaded for me this morning in ways that are deeper than normal for me, because I realize now I've lived a lot of my life up in here in my thoughts, in my mind, in stories that I told myself and that my parents told myself and back and back. And now as I'm starting to understand that because I've lived up here, I haven't been here. I haven't been present in my body, with myself, with my emotions, all the things. And so that's what I want to speak to today. And without too much emotion, I want you to feel into this, please. Because as I felt this morning, my thought was I would love to share this with anyone who is ready. And if you're here, you probably are ready. So I invite you to just listen with your heart wide open and see what lands for you. Okay. So what I have become more keenly aware of is how much I have, and I will speak to my own lived experience. And as I sat with many people as a therapist, I realized, oh, this isn't just me. This isn't just personal. This is a collective theme. And that's beautiful because it means that we are in this together and we get to support each other and walk each other home in this life that we're in. Okay, so we've been taught in so many ways to fix ourselves, to improve, to maybe even override, to become something better. And to also move away from what feels uncomfortable. But what if nothing in you is actually asking to be fixed? What happens inside of you when you hear that? What if nothing in you is actually asking to be fixed? Is there a part of you that doesn't believe that yet? If I'm really honest, there have been many times where I didn't understand that. And it was hard for me to believe that it was so simple. But the truth is actually that simple. It's almost embarrassingly simple. The deeper I go into these places in myself, we heal by meeting ourselves right where we are. We heal by meeting ourselves right where we are. So let's talk about that. Why do we leave ourselves? It's because we weren't taught to stay with ourselves, especially in the body, and maybe most especially women. We were taught in subtle and overt ways, very, very, sometimes it's spoken, sometimes it's not, sometimes we've just seen it modeled, to leave our bodies, to override what we feel, to disconnect from what didn't feel acceptable or wasn't safe or even allowed. Our emotions, our sensations, and yes, even our sexuality. There's no blame in this. It just is kind of in our overculture. When something in us feels uncomfortable, we actually move away from it. We can judge it. I've done that. I think I still do that. I find myself doing that. Or I try to fix it. And I even distract myself from it. Have you ever felt like you distracted yourself from tending to yourself? And in doing that, we keep ourselves separate from ourselves. Does that make sense? So when we're judging or trying to fix or correct a part of ourselves or make it different than what it is, we're literally separating ourselves from ourselves. So here's a question, and you don't need to put it in the chat. I just want you to sit, maybe even with your hand on your heart, and just think into how you might answer some of these questions. Can you feel where you tend to move away from yourself? Where do you notice yourself leaving? Even just a little bit. And then, what if, kind of like the question I asked before, what if the parts of you you've been trying to fix are actually the parts asking to be met, to be understood, to feel seen, feel safe, to show that they are without any fixing? Are these aspects of ourselves, our emotions, all the systems that make us who we be, they're not separate from us. They are us. So what part of you might be asking to be met right now? So when we keep pushing parts of ourselves away, we stay kind of fragmented. But when we turn toward these parts of ourselves, the parts that have maybe been othered for whatever reason that lives in us, when we can turn towards all of these parts of ourselves with gentleness, with curiosity. I love that aspect. How can we become more curious and with compassion for the parts of ourselves that only have ever not wanted to be fixed, but just be met, to feel seen, heard, and understood? These sacred needs that do not rest until they're met. When we turn towards those parts of ourselves with curiosity, compassion, and gentleness, something begins to come back together. Sorry, I'm letting people in here. And that's what wholeness is, not becoming something different or something new or better, but it's including what we've been leaving out. We've been leaving out parts of ourselves. So there's something else here that feels important to me, because many of us have a relationship with the word perfection that runs very deep, not just as an idea, but as something that has lived in our bodies, something we were taught, something we read, something that was modeled for us in many different ways. I think back to how I was raised in my family, in my culture, in the world. These things were modeled for us. And for a long time, I understood perfection as something that lived outside of me, something that I had to reach for, like that I had to achieve or get right. And that way of relating to it kept me, and I wonder how many of you can relate to this, it kept me over efforting, correcting myself and correcting others. It kept me judging myself and judging others. It kept me moving further and further away from my true nature, myself. And there's another way to understand it. And this is interesting. I love going deeper into the etymology of words and what they mean and where they started and how they got translated differently than the truest, purest form of that word. The original word that was translated as perfect comes from the Greek word teleios. And what it actually means is complete, whole, something that has all of its parts, mature, something that has come into its fullness, purposeful, something that fulfills what it was made for. So when we read and think about perfection in that way, with that lens, it changes, doesn't it? And it doesn't mean flawless. It doesn't mean without error. It means whole. And what shifts in you when you hear that? When you start to understand that perfection maybe never meant what we thought it meant, or what we were raised to believe about it. And how did that land? When I first heard this and understood the true meaning of perfection, something in me softened. What shifts in you when you hear that? I'm so curious. If you want to drop the word in, let me know over in the chat. The thing that it softened in me because it meant that what I had been chasing, literally chasing, was never actually asking me to become something else. It was asking me to actually come back to myself, to include what, okay, 100% Aurora says, Michelle, the body relaxes. I love that. I'm going to say that again. What was never actually asking me to become something else was asking me, guiding me, inviting me to come back home, to include what I had been leaving out, to turn away, to turn toward the parts of me I had learned to judge, to avoid, or even try to fix. And if I sit with this, there's a deep respect and forgiveness of the part of me that was doing that, because she didn't know a different way. So there's so much compassion for the judger and the judged here. And there's no blame in how we learned to be this way. And of course, it lived in us. It was taught, it was modeled, it was repeated over and over. But it was also a misunderstanding. That's it. That's all. It was just a misunderstanding contextually. But boy, oh boy, does it make a difference when you invite that concept into your body. So what if nothing about you was ever actually wrong? Only misunderstood. That lands different, doesn't it? And when that misunderstanding begins to loosen, the thing that I sit with people most in my practice and here in this place, because I'm so passionate about it, is what it begins to loosen is shame. Shame begins to loosen with the understanding that it's been a misunderstanding. And that is beautiful, because shame is different than guilt. Guilt says, oh, I did this thing and it was wrong. Shame says, I did that thing and I'm bad. And somehow that lives deep in every one of us, somehow, because it's something we learned when we were young by an interaction with someone that felt hard, with a caregiver, with a teacher, with a mentor, a friend, anyone. And then we made it mean something about us. And we took on this hefty thing called shame, that I must be bad because of the way they responded. So I need to change who I be in order to be loved and accepted. It's such a simple thing that we do to adapt around our shame and build a whole story around how we must be better than what we actually are. And that's the misunderstanding. When we can see it as that, it shifts and loosens that hefty, it's like a wet blanket we get to lift off. Yeah, shame is what tells us there's something wrong with us, that something needs to be hidden, something needs to be corrected before we can belong. And that's important when you're young. You need parents, you need caregivers to tend to you and take care of you and have put a roof over your head and give you food. So of course we're going to believe in our little mind, in our little child mind, because it's wired into our human body to survive and to belong. So we adapt around the shame that we feel for being human. And shame creates distance between what, of course, between us and others. It walls up our heart so we can't stand in our power, in our truth, and say, this is who I am, and I love me. And I love you just as you are. There's no condition. But shame creates that distance, but mostly if we're talking about this inner realm, our universe that we live in and create through our thoughts and our emotions about ourselves first, and then about life. What's going on in here, I promise, is being repeated out here. There's a war here. It's going to feel like there's a war out there in our lives, in our reality. But when there's connection and intimacy with all of our systems, our capacity for love, just as we are, without trying to change it or have conditions for I could love you more if. There's none of that. And when that starts to happen, there's a bridge. And the bridge is between our mind and our heart, between who we think we need to be and who we actually be. But when shame softens, we begin to come back to our home, back into our body, back into our heart, back into something more honest, more true. And from there, something else becomes possible. To let love be what leads us now, not fear, not the need to preserve an identity, not the need to get it right. So when I say this, it can be really simply identified that when we are living from fear, thinking we need to protect and preserve our identity, that we are this way. Sometimes we fight for our limitations, don't we? We believe them so deeply that we fight to prove that they're true. And if we believe that, all of life is showing us evidence of what we believe to be true. Pay attention. Because when we lead with fear, we're leading with our ego, not our heart, not with love. And doesn't it feel yucky? There's so much suffering. And I will be the first to admit, I have suffered greatly because I have believed it's safer to protect myself, protect my heart. It's been so broken. Everyone's heart's been broken, right? But when we turn towards that broken heart, something more true arrives, something quieter. What if the version of you that you've been trying to hold together isn't something you have to protect? What if it's something that gets softened so you can come back to what's underneath all of this? It's your heart, it's your love, it's your truth. That's who you be. We are love. We've never been separate from it. So wholeness doesn't come from fixing ourselves. It comes from including ourselves in the love, including ourselves in the curiosity and the compassion first. So from turning toward the parts of you you've learned to avoid and meeting them with something different. And this is resurrection, not once, not as a concept up here, but again and again. Every time you stop leaving yourself and gently return, something comes back together, back to wholeness. Pressure becomes permission, permission to be your own medicine. You get to be. It was never anyone else's responsibility. It wasn't our parents. It's not our lovers. It's not our best friends or our colleagues or our job or our professions or the things we believe will give us status or acceptance or something different than what we be. It was never about anyone or anything outside of us, not even a deity. And you get to do that. You don't have to, you get to. What a gift to be present with the only person who can never leave you. What a gift to create an alliance with yourself. And this is where something important begins to shift. Because as simple as this is, the mind doesn't always trust simplicity. The mind wants to understand it. It wants to organize it. It wants to figure it out and how to do it right, how to do it better. And that's what our mind does. So there's no, and that's not wrong. It really is not wrong. It's just what our mind does. And this kind of return, this kind of wholeness, isn't something that the mind sees. It's something the body recognizes because the body recognizes truth. The mind wants complexity, but the body recognizes truth immediately. Michelle, thank you for your honest question. What if that feels so far away? Yes, yes, I feel you. Yeah, that tracks. Probably everyone here is glad you asked that question because it's such a true thing. We feel so far from ourselves, so far away from the possibility of loving ourselves without conditions, without a condition. So let me speak to this a little bit more because there's more that was coming up. And as I share it, I'm hoping that you can feel into this. You don't have to think your way back to wholeness, back to yourself. You feel your way back. That is the difference. The mind wants complexity, but the body feels truth. Yeah, that is like a gift to understand. Our mind is over here just thinking. It's thinking about the concept. Well, how would I do that? That's going to be impossible because our mind is 95% guided by our subconscious, which is full of things below our awareness. Subconscious means below our awareness. So there it is, guiding 95% of what we believe, how we react, what we choose to do or think or judge or feel. 95% of it is below our awareness. 5% is where we're actually like, oh, I'm doing the thing. I'm doing that again. Okay. And with that awareness comes a new neural pathway. This is why epigenetics and neuroplasticity are so beautiful. Back in the day, way long ago, they used to believe as you got older, yeah, that's it. You can't change. And thank goodness that the research glowingly away, it blows my mind. I'm so grateful to know that I can always decide to change my mind, to create a new neural pathway that creates a new default. So now I'm living with the decision to be the creator of my reality because I know I can. I know the power of my love. I know the power of my being as I turn toward myself. It shifts everything. You understand that? It's so simple, you guys, that when we turn toward ourselves, we are literally changing the energy that we're emitting subconsciously. Now we're becoming more subconscious dominant in our awareness of how we're showing up in the world. You know, if you've been coming here, know me at all. I geek out on the intersection of science and spirituality, quantum physics and metaphysics. Metaphysics are the things that we cannot see, yet they're there, and we feel them. We feel them, yes, with our five senses, yes, with our sixth sense, and even beyond that. Do you think we really just have five senses? How I don't want to say silly, but when I think about it, we are infinite beings with limitless capacity to feel and to understand things that are outside of our awareness. When we start to understand that, it opens up all the potential possibilities for ourselves that already live in the quantum field, in the unified field for everyone. So when we start to do this for ourselves, guess what? Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself because I want to speak to this. But okay, we don't have to think our way back to ourselves. We get to feel our way back. And that means coming back home to our body. Can you feel that in your body right now? Just a little. The idea of thinking, I'm going to just tell you an example of something that came up like a month or two ago. And I was having old memories. Things come up from my life that felt really familiar and heavy. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I thought I've already done this work. Why is it coming up again? I've already healed that. And the awareness, thank goodness, came not to me, but from me. Oh, honey, that's true. You have been here thinking, living from your neck up. You've thought a lot about it. And yes, you've done beautiful work. But in order for this to permanently heal, it must be felt in your body. You've been running. Here I am. I created a whole business, a whole website, a whole life theme around the Buffalo Queen. What does that mean? The story, the phenomenon of buffalo is that when cattle are out, when a storm comes, they actually turn and run from the storm. And they end up in it longer because they are running with it and from it. The buffalo do something very different. They gather their herd in, which I believe is not just exterior people, things, whatever. I believe that it literally is gathering in the power of who you be, which is love and compassion and curiosity and abundance, all of that strength, and walking right into the storm. The storms that live here first, because if there's a storm out there, it's because it started here. When we face ourselves, like the buffalo, and go into it, they intuitively, innately know that they're going to get to the other side of it quicker, not because they're in a hurry, but they have deep wisdom from their lived experience of being like a cow, maybe. I don't know how they evolved to this, but it has my attention. It got my attention when I heard it 10 years ago at a betrayal trauma retreat. And it struck me like lightning, because what it made me finally wake up to is, oh my gosh, I'm a cow. I have been a cow. I've been running. I've been running from myself, running from what was heavy and hard and unimaginable in my life. And it taught me such important lessons about how to stay on my path and trust timing and trust that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, or I'm somewhere else in time. Time is relative. It doesn't exist. It's only in this realm that we're living in. So there is no, what is our past? We can only talk about it, think about it, and remember it right now. So guess what? That's good news, because what that means is we get to rewrite the story that we've been telling ourselves and that our ancestors have told us about ourselves. It lives deeply in us to be disconnected and believe we are separate from source, ourselves, others. The opposite of that is true. So what I'm talking about is embodiment. This is what embodiment actually is. It's not complicated. It's not something you learn how to do perfectly. It simply is your willingness. That's it. Your curiosity to stay present with what you're feeling instead of leaving it. Because I venture to guess you have all experienced, because if we're human, we came here to experience suffering in order to become someone who doesn't suffer, because we remember our wholeness as we love the suffering part back home. So it's simply the willingness. Instead of leaving, you stay. What is the opposite of presence? I'm really honest. I have lived most of my life absent from me. not even knowing that I've been absent. So for many of us, this is where the disconnection begins. We were taught in so many different ways to move out of our body, to override what we feel, and to disconnect from sensation, and to silence what didn't feel acceptable, especially as women. So, of course, this feels really unfamiliar, and there's nothing wrong with you for that. So, Michelle, when you say how it feels so far away, yes, yes, it does. I feel you. I totally understand that, and I think everyone else does too. But this is just the return. What would it feel like to stay right here instead of moving away from ourselves? So I'm just going to lead you really quickly into a short little practice. It's safe for you wherever you are. Close your eyes if it feels comfortable and bring your awareness to your body. Notice your breath. Just allow your body to soften and sink down and back in. When I think of how often I have lived my life up and out here, trying to control the circumstances of my life so I could feel safer, control them, how they're doing that, how they shouldn't be doing that. Really trying to control everything here because then out there, I'm trying to do it too. See how that works? Bring your awareness back home. Just breathe. Deepen down. And now with your eyes closed, little more stillness. Even stillness beautiful. That's another thing we avoid. It's something I have avoided for many years until it got so loud, annoying, that I had to be more still. And then I had a teacher that taught me something really beautiful. And you think about water. And when water is stirred up, it can be murky, unclear. When we can be more still, the water of our emotions and the tides that move through us, our moon cycles, all of that. When we are still, the dust begins to settle. And now there's clarity where there was murky before. With your eyes closed, this understanding of stillness, what arises with stillness inside of you, inside your universe. Just pause here. Is there anything right now that you've been moving from? Just breathe right there and see if you can just turn toward it without trying to change it. Just quietly, gently meet yourself. Allow yourself to stay. Even just for a few more breaths, then you'll move. So nothing you felt needed to be. It just feels like the beautiful invitation. Nothing you ever needed, just wanted. And not that aware kind of changes things, doesn't it? When we begin to meet ourselves this way, something shifts in how we relate. We begin to feel more connected, not just to ourselves. Yes, that first, that always first. And it is not selfish. It is vital. It is vital to change your reality means that you've changed and shifted things here. So We begin to feel connected, reconnected with ourselves, to each other, to life, not separate, not divided. Can you sense what that might feel like to not be separate from yourself? Does it feel, Michelle, so far away? Maybe the answer is yes, and that is okay. Whatever it is, it's okay. Can you see that? It doesn't need to be fixed. That's the shift. It's shifting our understanding that what we saw modeled and what we've been doing over and over, it doesn't make us wrong. It just makes us more aware of it now. Like, oh, I can do that for you. I can show up for myself like a tender lover of myself with compassion and curiosity and gentleness. Wow. Okay. Because it's Easter, there's something beautiful to contemplate here. This is not lost on me. It's Easter weekend, and today is Good Friday. Not only the resurrection, there's something beautiful to contemplate, not only the resurrection as a story, but the way that resurrection lives inside each one of us. Again and again, every time we stop leaving ourselves and we gently return. Rebirth doesn't come from becoming someone new. It comes from turning towards ourselves and allowing what's already here to be held in a brand new way. And it's simple. And what's almost disorienting at first, Michelle, what seems so foreign and so far away at first, is how simple this actually gets to be. So simple that it can feel like it can't be enough. There's no way it's that simple. To gently meet yourself right where you are, right where you are. What happens inside of you? Hear that, when you feel that, what would it be like to trust that this turning, the returning towards all the parts of you that ever wanted to just be held and seen? Can you trust that that could be enough? That simplicity could be enough? And yet, this is where everything begins to shift, because when you stop leaving yourself, something opens. This is what I'm beginning to experience that I want to share with you, because it keeps going deeper, you guys, because we are limitless and we are infinite beings. Our souls are infinite and we are limitless. So when we stop leaving and we stay, we be the one who stays with ourselves, creating that alignment. There is, once you get over the hump, Michelle, went from it feeling so far away to being the thing that you can actually do. And then you learn how different it feels here to do that. That's the shift. It's energy. Everything is energy. Now we're tending to ourselves in a new way. And now we have access because we've stripped away the part of us that was leaving ourselves with so much compassion. Remember, don't judge the judger or the judge. We get to have compassion for the part of us that was actually leaving, that felt safe or familiar leaving. So things are glitching here, but I hope you can still hear me. So on the other side of staying, there is more, you have access now, a greater capacity to touch into the love that we are. There's more joy, there's more depth, there's more capacity to be with life just as it is, even in the middle of things you would never choose, even in the middle of an unimaginable tragedy happening in your life or in someone else's life that you love, or even in this world as we look at it, the unimaginable, the overwhelming, because we're no longer separate from ourselves. We have a depth of capacity, of compassion for everything that's happening, and we're still okay. And in that, something deeper begins to be felt. that you were never separate to begin with. We've never been separate, not from ourselves, not from each other, not from life, not from source or the universe or God, whatever you want to call it. And this is where everything changes. So if you feel comfortable, you can drop one word in the chat for what's present for you right now after all of this. I know I did a lot of talking, and I'm hoping that the message, the energy of this message can land in your heart in a way that is felt, not thought about, felt, come back into your body and feel what it feels like to tend to your sweet, sweet self with a new lens, a new curiosity. If you would like to drop the one word that feels present for you, as I'm thinking, during COVID, I used to sit in these groups with people all over the world in Sangha, which is like meditation groups. And I was really drawn to that because it was kind of isolating, obviously, during COVID. So to sit in presence with people from all over the world in stillness and in silence, and sometimes we would do a thing called noting. And we would be with what is, noting it without, it's, called loving awareness. You're just aware that, thinking, not like, oh my gosh, why do I keep going back to thinking about that thing? I need to do better. I need to clear my mind. No, just thinking, and come back to present, to breathing and being right there. And there goes our mind again, thinking, just noting it. And being with it that way, instead of naming it, like I am anxious or I am angry, we noted there is, okay, Michelle says hope, there's hope, beautiful. Right now, for me, if I had to come up with one word, and it's funny because what came to me this morning too was that question, what, if I'm not present, what am I? Am I absent? And is that wrong? Can I blame myself for being absent for so many years of my life? No, I'm not going to do that anymore to myself. I'm going to say, of course you were absent. That's all you ever knew, all you ever saw. And that was an important experience for you, Noel, because now you have lived to a really deep degree what it is like to be absent from life, from love, from abundance, from the truth, the thing you've never been separate from. And so the word that comes up for me is just presence. How can I invite presence, myself into presence with my breath, with my awareness, with my compassion and my curiosity for whoever is standing in front of me? It becomes really easy to do that. Why? Because I did it, I've done it, and I will continue to do it for myself here first. That is what shifts energy. When there is peace and presence here, I promise you, whatever has been going on out there in your life will look and feel very different now. When you build your capacity for intimacy, all of yourself, and allow all those fractured, fragmented parts to come back to wholeness at the center of your love, your heart, that shifts the energy. So now your signal that you're sending out to the universe is what? It's one of compassion and curiosity and gentleness. And so what comes back, because the law of the universe is that like matches like, the energy, the signal, everyone has an energetic signal. It's like a fingerprint. And if we're not aware of the signal we're sending out, our fingerprint to match with another fingerprint energetically, if we're not aware and we subconsciously living without awareness and absent, then we are drawing in more to show us that we are living absently until we finally wake up to why am I suffering so much? What is so uncomfortable? Oh, I'm the signal that creates my reality. I am the creator of my signal. I get to decide. I love the word decide because it's different than choosing. Choosing feels like, well, there's this or that. Well, when we decide who we be, and we start living from that decision, that's when things change. So lovely, you guys. Thank you. Michelle says hope. Karen says peace within. Izzy says grace. Yes, yes. Can you feel that? Now the signal is hope, grace, wiggle room, Aurora. Yeah, there's space there. There's peace. When you are sending out that signal with intention, because you decided it can be so, everything shifts. Your relationship with everything starts. Now life is showing you what's going on in here. Ah, I can be okay with what is, even if it's falling apart. I can trust myself to be safe, to feel what I'm feeling, because I know I'm not going to abandon myself. I will always be right here. I'm not going anywhere. I will remain present, and that changes everything. So, in closing, I just want to say thank you for coming here, feeling maybe just a shift, a movement, a softening around your heart. We put up heart walls, energetic heart walls. I just had to have a pacemaker put in. I'm not going to show you my scar. It's still pretty, very red and prominent. But I spent years somehow subconsciously believing somewhere deep that I was a woman whose heart was broken. And it was broken, and that's okay. But I didn't realize that I lived from that place. And in that place is the energy of victimhood, that I am a victim of having my heart broken by something outside of me. And I never knew I was doing that until a doctor just a month or two ago noticed that my heart rate was in the 30s and 20s, almost fully stopped. And so now that I know how our emotional, mental, energetic body, everything starts with a frequency, right? Everything's energy. Our thoughts and our emotions are energy. Energy in motion is emotion. What we're feeling land in our body eventually. It goes from refined energy and it gets denser and denser and denser the more we stay in that energy. And it has to go somewhere. You can't destroy energy. So if we're suppressing and pushing down sadness, fear, anger, those are primary emotions. Even joy is a primary emotion. If we're shoving those down to places unknown, I promise you they are there. They are here. My heart had to fully break physically and be through Western medicine. There's no shame in that. I used to feel ashamed of, oh, I'm going to heal myself with my own energy. And then to have Western medicine be the thing that actually healed my physical heart, there's no shame in that. I'm so grateful that I could finally see the pattern that I've been living out by ignoring myself from holding myself, being the one who got to hold myself through my broken parts and know that that was part of my past, part of my experience to forget that I have always been connected to source. I forgot. And now that I remember, I live in a different way. I have a bionic heart now. What a gift. I get to go live the next best chapters of my life, running and hiking and just being alive without having to stop and catch my breath. That was my story for 20 plus years. So be curious about what's going on in here and the signal you're sending out. Be curious, be compassionate, and move that signal into something more true, something true that is you, that you're not separate from, which is love and abundance. And when that starts sending out, the whole reality will shift to magic. That is your power. When I talk about empowerment, I don't think of equal rights amendment for women as a feminist with a fist shaking. No, what is going to heal this world is women. I do believe this, women becoming empowered through the power of love, because they are tapping into that, turning to yourself over and over, where it becomes so natural that now that's what you're doing with every experience, every person, everything, every animal in front of you, with all of life. You now accept it just as it is, and you're not trying to change it. You love it without any conditions. And that'll change our world. And I believe that. I really do believe that. And in closing, we don't have to go anywhere to come home to ourselves. We simply and gently get to meet ourselves, and everything begins to come back together to the human. That is my message today, and I'm so grateful that you were here. I continue to do this twice a month on the first and the third Fridays. I do it for free because I feel so passionate about sharing the things that have changed my life. They have changed me deeply, deeply. And there's not one day that I don't sit in stillness and just weep with gratitude for my life, for the love that I am, that I've given myself, and how deeply it has shaped me and changed me for the better. Not that the old Noelle was bad. It's just that I have access now to joy, to love, to all the things that I am, that somehow I felt distanced from. So I hope this landed for you. I'm continuing to work with women, but I'm also working with men. I meet with the men on the last Friday of every month, and I am flabbergasted at how many of them are showing up and wanting advice. And I think especially for men, they were taught to distance themselves from their emotions because that would make them weak if they turn towards their emotions, when just the opposite of that is true. I love to sit with men who are ready, who've already done some of the work, and they are ready to go deeper into these deeper realms of understanding how the universe works, how energy works, and how we are the ones creating our reality through the signals we're sending. Thank you for being here. Namaste. The divine light in you, which is no different than the divine light in you. I see it and I honor it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up for yourself. This, whether you are aware of it or not, is a radical act of self-love. Pat yourself on the back for being here, for feeling. Watch this again, maybe, and maybe even sit in some stillness. The best time to do this is right as you're falling asleep, or right as you're waking up. These are the hypnagogic and the hypnopompic states of being, where we are in theta and we are subconscious dominant. So then we can plant seeds in our subconscious because it's childlike, it's obedient. It will do what we tell it. It won't say, don't talk to me like that. If we're like, oh, I'm an idiot, don't ever say that. Your body, your subconscious is always listening, but rather feed it with all the possibilities of you showing up as your true self, loving on yourself. Sit with yourself, talk to yourself in those states as you're falling asleep. Say thank you to all the versions of you that experienced suffering. They took one for the team. They showed up for you because you are that and they are you. They're not separate from you. Thank them. Allow them to come home to the center of your heart and be held there. Do that while you're sleeping and waking, and see how radically that changes your life. That will start to shift things because now your subconscious is getting the message, oh, there's a different way to do things. I can do this. Okay, right on. Here I go. The RAS is the reticular activation system, and that lives in energetically, that's the thing that's sending the signal out. So if you're feeding your subconscious seeds of doubt, of regret, of victimhood, what is the signal? Be aware of what we feed our subconscious with and what our signal will be. Okay, now I digress. But I love this. I love you. Thank you for being here. Share it with anyone you think might need this. And I will keep reminding you when I'm doing this, and I'm building courses for men and women to come home to their bodies so they can actually feel and heal on all levels. That's what I speak to women about. And to men, learning how to lead, be an emotional leader, how to regulate, to stay, and to repair when when things feel conflicted or emotions get heavy in their relationships. There are a lot of men who are very successful, high achieving men in their careers, and yet their personal relationships are suffering because no one ever modeled or showed them how to regulate their emotions, stay present, and to lead the repair and say, I'm sorry, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to try. I'm sorry that I reacted that way. Let me try again. Can I get a do-over? This is huge. And this is what's going to shift everything is when men and women can lead with love, lead with their hearts rather than their ego or their fear. Okay. I love you. Thank you. And ciao for now. Ah, thank you. Let me just read this. I want to read this for the recording. Michelle says, thank you so much for your wisdom, sending love, wishes, and blessings for continued healing for you. Beautiful new heart, literal and figurative. Thank you. Thank you for sharing so much with us. Aurora, this is wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, friends, sisters. Thank you for being here. So much love. Now take this into your heart and share it with someone. Share it with someone that you love. Share it with yourself first, and then share it with someone you